Pregame.com.
Pregame.tv, back the A team. I mean the B team. Scott Spreitzer, Steve Fezzik bringing you NFL and college football talk. Scott is going to lead off for us. BYU against a suddenly vulnerable Texas squad.
Yeah, they are, man. They lose David Ash. And this could be something that's ongoing, something to keep an eye on if you're a Texas Longhorn fan, because this kept him out of a lot of action last year, all these concussion-type symptoms and the head injury that he suffered again this past weekend. And Swoops is going to play quarterback, reportedly, for the Longhorns this weekend, Tyrone Swoops, who, by the way, is related to Cheryl Swoops of WNBA. Really? Yeah, I don't know how it is. It's somehow related to your WNBA girl, Cheryl Swoops. But as far as this game's concerned, I'm not a big Charlie Strong fan. I'm just going to come out and say that. I know what he's done is exactly what this program needed, so far. He comes in there, and the Mac Brown Country Club at UT is completely closed for business. And that had to be done. These guys are running wild. He might get some more discipline out of the defensive side of the football from this team. They looked pretty good, but it was against North Texas. A lot of people are talking about how good the passing game looked last week for Texas. I didn't think so, man. I mean, David Ash was, barely over 50% as far as his passing was concerned. And I think it drops off even a little bit more with Swoops out there at quarterback. I think what BYU has to stay away from in this particular game is trying to run the ball a little bit too much between the tackles. I think that's where Texas is going to be at their best. And, of course, BYU does get back about 5 or 6 players, including their running back Jamal Williams, who were suspended last week and they went over UConn. But
would they have like a cup of coffee or something?
Yeah, it was like they were paid 50 cents and had a cup of coffee at the local Starbucks. And I don't know the exact reasons, but the bottom line is they're back. It absolutely is.
And it's funny too, because you see all that news and some money comes on UConn last week. Right. It goes down from 17 to 14 and a half, and it's like against a horrible Connecticut team. But the fact that they really did look good. I watched the game.
Sure.
Absolutely dominated. And Texas is not only is Ash out, but his center is out as well. Yep. And he was the rock of the O-line, correct?
Yeah, now you've got a second-string quarterback and a backup center. They have had time together, obviously, in practice, but the bottom line is it's a difference maker. It is a serious difference maker. And a guy like Bronco Mendenhall and what he does defensively, I mean, he's a defensive-minded coach first, been head coach at BYU for a while now, but he's going to take advantage of this. I mean, you could switch things up a little bit on the defensive line in the trenches and try to make life tough on a young center, especially when he's got a young quarterback behind him. So I won't be surprised. Now, I know everybody is talking about revenge, because Texas really wiped them off the field when they met last year, September of 2013. They blew them out 40-21. The yardage was crazy as far as what BYU was able to do against that Texas defense. But to me, revenge angles are a little bit overhyped. I used to say it's changed since then. But when Nebraska used to be in the Big 8/Big 12, and everybody used to talk about Kansas State, oh, they've got revenge. I'm like, yeah, they've had revenge for about 30 years.
Couple revenge.
Yes. So I'm not real crazy about the revenge angle.
Let me ask you, normally I'd be concerned BYU travel spot, going east, back to mountain, now to Texas. But I guess, we got like 24-year-old kids, a lot of older team with them going on the missions. And you've got the fact that, it was week 1 and week 2, so it was easy to get to Connecticut week 1, right?
Yeah, I looked at that, and I'm going to say if this was like week 4 and week 5 back-to-back, as you just said, it's week 1 and week 2, I'd be a little bit more concerned. Plus, I don't care what anybody says. As Fezzik said, they're a little bit older when it comes to BYU, some of their players, and they're a little bit more mature. A lot of them have to be when they're going to BYU with the strict codes that they have to follow. And so there's a little bit more focus on what they have to do on the gridiron, getting to sleep early. I know there's a few stragglers who do their own thing, but the bottom line is this isn't the same as judging a lot of schools that come into play off of back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, I think you could take almost like the other trends and stuff like that and just
toss them out. It kind of like, they cancel each other out.
Now, this spread opened up 3.5 to 4. That's when we didn't know Ash wasn't going to be playing.
Sure.
And then it's gotten pulled off the board. We imagine it's probably going to come back up. BYU catching points to begin with. I think this is one that I can see where you're going on this. I'm going to ask you to make it official shortly, but I think it's one we want to bet as soon as it comes back up and not wait, correct?
Exactly.
All right, let's make it
best.
Yeah. Do it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with BYU here plus the points. And we've seen some threes out there early in the week when Ash was first removed and going to be out with that concussion. But I think the offensive line for BYU is going to be able to hold their own against Texas. And again, I wasn't all that impressed with the Texas offense against North Texas. And I think Swoops is another notch below what David Ash was going to give him. Obviously he is. Otherwise, you wouldn't have Charlie Strong starting David Ash to begin the season. And he had hoped to have Ash throughout the entire year. This wasn't a, this kid falls on his face. We got another guy who we can plug right in and makes no difference as far as the drop off on offense. Again, I like Mendenhall better than I like Charlie Strong. I'll wrap it up giving this example. If Charlie Strong would have still been the head coach of the Louisville Cardinals in Game 1 this past Monday night when they beat Miami, I would have taken the points with the Miami Hurricanes. It's post-Teddy Bridgewater. Not a big Charlie Strong X's and O's guy. I think he's a good fit right now. He wasn't the first choice by Texas. He's cleaning up the program. That doesn't necessarily make them a top 10 or top 20 perennial program again. I think BYU is the real deal. I like him here. And,
there was one well-known expert in the handicapping field, extremely gifted, and one of his best bets was Texas over 7.5 wins. And one of his key points of analysis.
What could that be?
It's actually Dr. Bob Stoll.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I thought you were talking about yourself.
No, I just bet it. Right. But what's interesting is it shows you why you want to read everyone, because one of his key analysis was that Ash was going to have a breakthrough year, and he was talking about all the reasons why you could forgive some of his poor or subpar performances before, and how the backups just weren't going to be able to do it well. Now
I got to go to the backup.
Now I got to start betting against Texas to get back my money. I'm going to lose on them over 7.5.
And I thought you were going to say it was your play, and I was going to say I respect that play before Ash got hurt, and I respect Dr. Bob. We'll tell you one of these days about a day we spent at Fridays in Las Vegas. It was crazy. The day started about noon and it went to the next day. But anyway, as far as that's concerned, yeah, I mean, you base it off a healthy quarterback. Like we said on our radio show on Tuesday, if Taysom Hill goes down, BYU's a mess because Olsen transferred in the offseason. He transferred to Southern Utah. If they don't have Taysom Hill, this is a completely different football team that has a rough time winning games weekly, but he's currently healthy. So with Ash healthy, I could see being on that over 7.5. With them not healthy, I don't think so. I think it's a rough year. When you look at their schedule coming up, check it out. Next 4 or 5 weeks, they got a lot of tough teams that they're playing against. Between now and October 11th, and it starts this weekend.
So, trivia question: what do the Rams and BYU have in common? They have Hill Street Blues if they their quarterback goes down. All right, that's enough for college football. We're going to move on over to the NFL, and Scott's going to be breaking down Cincinnati, Baltimore. We might play point counterpoint on this game. Stay with us. Pregame.tv.